All right, folks, here we are. Jack Posobiec once again in for the great Tim Pool. Did actually get a chance to see Tim earlier today and spent a little bit of time with him. He's still working through the throat issues, but he's doing better.
Told you he's not in the basement.
He's on the No, he's not. He's not in the basement. And he was on the board. I can confirm that he was on the board today, and he was working through that. So who knows? We might see him pop in here and there. The issue, though, is that if he pushes it too hard, he's going to be out again. And so that is why he's on the mend right now, and we're absolutely, none of us can wait until Tim comes back. And the one thing that he did tell me to share with everybody, he said, wow, there's so much news, there's so many topics out there that it's killing him to not be working right now because he's got so much that he wants to say and so much that he wants to share with everybody. So that's kind of his message, but he's doing well. We wish him well. And yeah, we got another episode of the Poso cast here tonight. And unfortunately, it's one of those nights where, I wish that we had anything else to talk about than the story. Of course, we're going to be getting into the Minneapolis massacre this evening, and it's horrific. It's disgusting. We're going to talk about, there might be a couple of other pieces of stories that we get into, but honestly, I think this show's, it's dominated everything, and we're going to talk about the individual that has been ID'd in this situation. Again, another transgender shooter targeting a Christian school. In this case, a Catholic school on the very first mass of the school year. So we're going to get into all of that in just a little bit. Before we do, I want to tell you, though, of course, that this show is brought to you by tonight, Cast Brew Coffee. So make sure you're going out there, you're supporting it. Look, it keeps the lights on, it keeps everything going on here, helps the guests come in, and it's good coffee too. Look, I've been trying this stuff. It keeps you up. It keeps you absolutely up. And so I'm not saying that I'm running at the speed of Tim Pool while I'm out here, but at the same time, it's absolutely something that once you get it in your gullet, it is going to get you going. So check it out. Go to castbrew.com. They have great new flavors. There's all sorts of things you get out there. Plus, by the way, it's a good gift. So, if you got somebody who wants coffee, who doesn't like coffee, you go for it. Another update that I wanted to give, an update on Psycho Stu. We talked about this last night. I believe it was around $112,000, his GoFundMe. It is now up to 160. It's just about to break 165,000. This pro wrestler who suffered a horrific attack. And Phil, actually, I think you had a medical update on Psychos too.
Yeah, he's awake. I saw on X today he's awake. He's got people around him talking to him and stuff. So it looks like he's going to make a full recovery. I mean, obviously with TBI, it's tough to say what kind of long-term effects it's going to have. Yeah. But it does look like he's going to be, back up and around in fairly short order.
That's a hard video to watch.
Yeah.
It is, and I meant to mention this last night, but we saw that Chris Jericho had thrown some money in, so that's great. Jericho, he always gets involved with stuff like that. Great guy, so really appreciate to see that. Another great guy, though, by the way, is our guest. I'm told that it is his first Timcast, even though tonight is PosoCast. But you and I know each other, folks. It's the great Dr. Steve Turley.
Hey, guys. Great to be with you. It's an honor.
Tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Well, we were actually just talking about this before we went live, but this is kind of full circle for me, which is interesting because I was in academia for 20 years, and it was right at the height of the first Trump campaign, and I didn't think conservative commentators really understood Trump. They thought he was like a Democrat in sheep's clothing and all that. He sounded more like Bernie Sanders when he was talking about economics and so on. But I had studied nationalist populism and particularly the way it was exploding in Europe. And they focused on three things: border security, economic security, and cultural security. And all of a sudden, when I heard Trump speak, I said, oh my, it's come to our shores. So I looked at a colleague of mine who was into marketing. And I said, I'm getting frustrated listening to these talk radio guys kind of going the more neocon ideological analysis of Trump, not quite understanding that this is a new paradigm, nationalist populism. And what should I do? How can I get that out there? And he said, well, why don't you start a YouTube channel? And I'm like, I don't even know how to load a video at this point, and I don't even know what to do. And he said, well, here, let me share with you a couple of channels that are doing something like that are commentating and teaching through YouTube. And he sent me two. And I think you guys have had Styx Hexenhammer on here. Styx.
He's a great guy.
He sent me Styx back in 2016, and then he sent me this guy, Tim Pool. And this is when this is 2016. I think IRL was really young. I maybe 300,000.
It wasn't even IRL.
It wasn't even IRL yet. There you go.
It was just
Timcast giving the commentary. And I said, oh, I can do that. This is the coolest thing in the world. So I started doing it in November of 2016. Trump wins. I kept going with it. And here we are. I finally retired from academia, and I'm a full-time broadcaster. Very much thanks to this what's happened here. So this is really cool. For me, it's a very exciting thing to kind of go full circle here.
I think I remember the video where you actually left like for the last day at work.
Yeah.
I remember that video. I remember. How long ago was that?
Oh man, when was that? Yeah, like 2021, 2022, something like that. Yeah, I can't even remember now. It all blends together. Just a few years ago, but it's been an amazing ride, and it's thanks to you guys. I really appreciate it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. In addition, we've got Libby Emmons is here.
Hi, Jack. Hi, everybody. I'm Libby Emmons. I'm glad to be here tonight. I'm with the Postmillennial and HumanEvents.com.
There we go. Brett.
What's going on, guys? Brett. Normally Pop Culture Crisis, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's talk politics, though.
All right. And of course, Phil.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
All right. And so, anti-communist is certainly something that comes up tonight. A horrific situation where, and actually for this story, the Minneapolis massacre, let's go over, because we've got the Postmillennial, but we also have the editor-in-chief of the Postmillennial with us. Libby, can you give us the sort of update on, not the update, but just a rundown? If someone's living under a rock, they have no idea what happened in Minneapolis, walk us through the story as you have it now.
Well, this is something that we were tracking all day in the newsroom at the Postmillennial. Myself, Hannah Nightingale, and Roberto Wakeroll Cruz, and they did the bulk of the writing on this. And by the end of the day, I was like, go get some air, guys, because it's brutal just from being in a newsroom covering this kind of stuff, covering like massacres of children. So what we had in Minneapolis was a man whose mom used to work at the school, who identifies as transgender, 23 years old, came to the school. It was the first week of classes at Annunciation. And all of the kids were at mass. He had 3 weapons with him, a pistol, a shotgun, and something else. I don't remember what it was. Some of these weapons were emblazoned with
Pistol, shotgun, and a semi-automatic
and
rifle.
a semi-automatic rifle. And the barrels of the guns, one of them said, kill Trump on it.
Yeah,
they had
Very
all
reminiscent
kinds
of the Christchurch shooter.
Yeah, very, like a lot of
We've seen a lot of
terrifying.
shooters that write on the...
messages. Came up to the windows outside the school, started shoot outside
the stained glass windows.
The church. Yeah, the stained glass windows. It looks like maybe some of the doors were barricaded on the side that he was shooting into. He shot through the stained glass windows. Killed 2 students. Injured 14 students. There was actually a 5th grader who dove under the pews and said that his friend Victor covered him under the pews, and protected him. And Victor got shot in the back and was taken to the hospital. And the shooter killed himself inside the church. And now there's 14 injured children. 2 families have lost their children, and some injured adults as well.
And I think I did see, I've been tracking all the updates, CNN and everyone, and Postmillennial updates, and of course Daily Mail. And I believe that they did say, though, that they believe that the injured students that are in the hospital as of right now are expected to recover. So they're not expected. Right. So we were hearing people that were on, that were critical, and it seems as though they're not anymore. So that's amazing.
A real blessing.
Thank God. That's an
Yeah.
absolute
Thank
blessing.
God is right now.
And so the shooter, Libby, walk us through the very strange, very bizarre case, but unfortunately now becoming almost a trend of this Robert, aka Robin Westman.
So we had, wait 1 second here. Sorry about that.
You had what?
Okay. Sorry about that. No, I was just, I was talking to one of our writers who was working on something, and we were debating whether or not
But the idea
Mr.
was that
Westman
this was
a former student of the school. There's some back and forth.
Well, it looks like the mother
had worked at the school. So this guy, as soon as it was revealed what his name was, which came onto social media before it came up in any of the news outlets, Robin Westman, it turns out that he had gender transitioned. He had changed his name. His mother had signed off on that. So he had supportive parents who were helpful, apparently, in his gender transition. He had a lot of really wild writings. We were talking about this earlier, a lot of anti-Jewish stuff, pro-Gaza stuff, and some writing that was really hard to decipher. It was like...
And anti-Trump.
Yeah, anti-Trump stuff. And a lot of it was, we were looking at it and it sort of looked like it was in Russian, but it was sort of phonetically using the Cyrillic alphabet.
It was using the Russian alphabet, the Cyrillic alphabet, but it was English for the most part. So if you know the Russian alphabet, which is kind of just based on Greek anyway, if you know the Greek letters, you can. I was trying to muddle my way through it earlier today, and then someone used AI, and it just there you go. All the way there.
That's right. Why do we do it ourselves anymore?
Right. Well, you got to challenge yourself, but very horrifying manifesto, because what you would see in this thing, and maybe we'll check out some portions of it, because
we can look at it.
You see what you see is someone who is talking about very matter-of-factly how he plans to kill the children, and is discussing, and it's almost a journal where he's like talking to himself quite a bit, where he's discussing when is the best time to target the children. Would it be when they're on the playground? What's a good vantage point? Would it be when they're going into the gym? But it's tough because apparently the gym is in the basement, so that would be hard to get there with this arsenal of weapons, which obviously you can't really conceal a semi-automatic rifle, and then eventually we know, obviously, he chooses this mass, and I believe they were still entering into mass, and so it was this. So you can see the direct connection between the manifesto, the pre-planning, and the actual event itself, because the idea was to target the children as they were moving. The school is in one building and the church is in another, so the idea was to target the children as they were walking in to the church, and it is a miracle that that more were not killed.
It really is,
because of the way this was planned.
It's sort of reminiscent of the Nashville shooting.
It's very reminiscent. Yeah. And so there are two martyrs now in they're in heaven, but this took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Let's go. I want to get Dr. Turley's take on this. Why are we seeing this trend?
I'm just writing. I put a phrase down: the banality of evil. And I recall that was Viktor Frankl's phrase, who suffered through the Holocaust. And just the way I looked at some of those videos of him planning this attack, and that's the motto that I heard. It's just the pure banality of what he's doing. It's just so matter of fact, and it reminded me of the Rutgers study that was published back in May. They called it assassination culture. Did you catch this?
I did see this,
yeah. So there was a Rutgers study that asked the question, do you think it is justifiable to assassinate President Trump? And there were two stunning numbers. The first one was the amount of people who said yes. It was about a third of those who said yes. But what was even more stunning was that a majority of self-identified Democrats, 55%, said that it was at least somewhat justified to assassinate President Trump. He's in good company. 60% of self-identified leftists believed vandalizing and destroying Teslas was justifiable, and what we were seeing here, and what shocked the scholars of this study, is they were calling it assassination culture. And what it seems to be is the left appears to have lost the ability to discuss and to deliberate and to debate. What wokeness basically does is it designates certain things as so sacred, certain identities as so sacred, that any dissent from them is considered to be heresy. And what do you do with heretics? You excommunicate them, right? And what's the ultimate form of excommunication? Right? You burn them. Exactly. And so there just seems to be this virus, this infestation of excommunication. I mean, even Bill Maher's brought it up. What are we going to do? We can't. This is when Biden was president. What do we do? You can't. Make half the country disappear. You got to learn to get along with your MAGA uncle. You're going to have to.
They don't, though.
But they don't. That's the thing.
They've taken to excommunicating their own family members,
exactly.
And that was I think the earliest sign for a lot of people was that if you can't leave it at the dinner table and move on with your life with the people that you have the closest relationship to, you can't expect them to hold that with people who believe something different that have no connection to them whatsoever.
Well, there was this very crazy thing in July. There was an article out from the New York Intelligencer saying it's okay to go no contact with your MAGA relatives. That was in July 2025.
Yep.
They've been saying the same thing since like 2016, 2017. And in the same time, also in July, same week, was an article from the New York Times, an opinion essay saying, is it time to stop snubbing your right-wing family? And so they're still debating this, right? And the crazy thing about is it time to stop snubbing your right-wing family one? The guy who wrote it was talking about how he got into surfing, and the only person he knew who was into surfing was his MAGA brother-in-law. So he had to descend and lower himself to go talk to his brother-in-law because that was the only guy who knew who was surfing. And the brother-in-law was like, sure, dude, I'll go surfing with you. No big deal. Like, that's cool.
This kind of stuff, we can laugh about it, and we all laugh about, I've cracked more than my share of jokes about Antifa or others, but at the same time, these are the individuals who are so sick and twisted and depraved that they are far more willing to pick up a firearm and walk into one of these situations, a school, a school with little kids, and start opening fire. And so they're absolutely deadly dangerous, and it's absolutely deadly serious. And so, we were, as this story was breaking, I didn't even mention it to my wife. I didn't even mention it to Tanya Tay because, as we were finding out about this, our kids are in a Catholic school, and we're, we didn't have a school mass this week, but I'm sure I think we have one coming up. That's going to be the first one. And the school actually sent out a very nice letter. Obviously, I'm not going to be naming it, but.
Oh, I wanted to get in my car and run over and pick up my son from school.
It hits close to home. It hits really close to home. And by the way, for any parent, right? For any parent, but, it really is religious schools, and particularly Christian schools, that are targeted again and again and again. And I tweeted something earlier about this, and the reason that I believe it is because at the end of the day, these people, these lunatics, believe that God created them wrong. So they hate God for creating them. They realize that they can't attack God directly. They can't do anything to God directly. So what do? You attack his children. You attack the you find the thing that's going to hurt him the most by going after that which is most precious to him. There's the children of God.
There's a lot of substance to that argument. The idea that they're going after,
in their mind, obviously, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, whatever kind of twisted way they have, they approach the world, but it's beyond just attacking God for making them wrong. It's attacking God for the crime of making the world imperfect. The left really believes that you can perfect the world, that you can perfect humanity, that if you just make enough changes, just do enough things, or whatever it is, the topic of the day or the topic that's most important on their mind, they believe that you can perfect humanity. That's why the farthest left believe in communism. They believe that they can perfect society. And so when they see the imperfections, they want to lash out at God and all of existence for the crime of being imperfect.
Right, but it's human beings that brought, imperfection and evil into the world, right? I mean, we're the ones that ate that apple and got kicked out of Eden.
But for a lot of these younger, like the shooters of today, what is happening now is we've got decades of the media pushing back and saying that Christianity is evil. We've got decades of the media. The other big thing with these stories is like, look, leftist violence is largely ignored in all sentiments. If you were to ask the average person if you would ask the average person, like, where does the majority of the what they call domestic terrorism and violence coming from, they're going to tell you it's coming from the right. All of these stories end up all of these stories end up getting buried to page 3 after enough, in just due course. It's not going to take much time for that to happen. And what you do is you prime people who are, look, I was just reading a thread yesterday. I don't remember who posted it. It might have been Josie, but somebody said, like, isn't it interesting how after serial killers became media fascination in the 70s and 80s, it immediately gave way to school shooters in the 90s. And this was yesterday before that happened. And now that's kind of grown from what was serial killers as a matter of public fascination. School shooters in the 90s, it felt like it was about despair and a lack of motivation for life, or a lack of home life, right? It was about your parents getting divorced and antidepressants. And that's just given way to another thing today, which is identity.
Sure,
politics.
but now with the trans shooter and which we've seen a number of trans shooters at this point, you have politicians wearing shirts that have like a knife on it and a rose or semi-automatic guns saying "protect trans kids."
And that's the lieutenant governor of the state.
Governor of the state of Minnesota.
There's no such thing as trans kids. There's no such thing as trans kids.
The cover of Eugene
Hold
Weekly.
on, can you pull up that Still Boneless? I know posted it. The T-shirt that Libby's talking about. Just pull up Still Boneless. He's got it. But then I want to go to the manifesto after this, because we've got a few. Because we don't even need to speculate, because this individual said in his own words all of the things that we're talking about. So and there's that's part of the manifesto that's just extremely totally
disturbing.
demonic.
Yeah,
it's totally demonic.
He's being courted by demons.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a Cyrillic as
well. Well, this is actually in Russian. So Pomogите меня, help me. Я не хочу, I don't want. Помоги, help. Probably can't say that on YouTube. When will this end? I'm not even going to try to say that. Когда это something. Zakachistya. But no, there's scroll down a little. Here it is. So this is that's the lieutenant governor.
Totally insane.
Of Minnesota.
Yes, it is.
Protect trans kids with a rose and a knife.
Yeah. Totally insane.
Which is, it just seems to be.
And they act like if you're like the whole trans concept is just very sweet and
aggressive.
loving,
It's
but
obviously
it's incredibly aggressive.
Yeah.
Well, there is something to that. Cultural anthropologists have looked at that where they interpret violence and hysteria as a form of possession. So it's not them. They're being possessed by literally evil spirits, demonic spirits. So when they commit crimes, if you're a protected identity, when you commit crimes, it's not your fault. It's the fault of the malignant spirits that are outside of your control. And in political correctness, what are those malignant spirits? Racism, bigotry, phobia, and on and on and on. And so if you're part of that group, if you're committing crimes supposedly in the name of the right or and so forth, well then you are the demon. They don't let you off. They'll let one group off and say they're not doing it. They're being overwhelmed by satanic demonic forces. But when the right commits crimes, that is satanic force.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a radical double standard where one is possessed, where the other one, that's their nature. That's who they are.
That's a tragedy. That is, it's so terrible that this good, promising young student, fell into this trap. You see that they use the same rhetoric for common criminals.
Exactly.
Not even in cases like this, just they use the same, it's socioeconomic factors.
Exactly.
Or
Society made it.
Society made do this.
It's a cry for help.
It's always making a victim out of whoever's doing these.
So I want to,
which means we're the criminals.
Which means you're forgetting the actual, you're missing the actual criminal and the actual victims. So I want to read.
That's what the left does. They're literally an inversion of the truth all the time.
Right.
You know, right. Whether it be, you know, the glorification of things that are essentially evil or symbols of evil, or the people that are actually on the attack are saying, well, I'm attacking because I'm actually being attacked. They make themselves the victim. It's just an inversion of whatever the truth is.
Let's because I was talking about this earlier with Libby, is that, you know, I when I see crazy, I want to poke it with a stick. So let's delve into this manifesto a little bit.
That's why I don't hang out with you.
Exactly. So I think I'm going to skip around, but this part obviously is in English. I think I am dying of cancer. It is a tragic end. It is entirely self-inflicted. I did this to myself as I cannot control myself and have been destroying my body through vaping and other means. And there was a report that he used to work at a cannabis dispensary. I think I have lung cancer. I have felt many pains that make me think I am past the point of recovery. I don't want to recover. I don't want to throw my life away by rotting in a hospital bed. I don't want the rest of my life to be as a cancer patient. So scrolling down a little bit. So here it is. Due to my depression, anger, and twisted mind, I want to fulfill a final act that is in the back of my head for years. And so now, you know, talking a little bit about apologizing to his family, but look at this right here. I want to escape from this world. I want to escape from the constant bills, the crappy jobs, crappy people, and injustice of America. I am done with this. I will not bow. I will be selfish and leave you to pick up the pieces. It is my fault. Blame me, but please move on. I want to skip ahead to the other part here. I am a sad person haunted by these things that do not go away. So there you go. Just like Dr. Turley was talking about, they're haunted by these things. I know this is wrong, but I can't seem to stop myself. I am severely depressed and have been suicidal for years. Only recently have I lost all hope and decided to perform my final action against this world. I don't want to kneel down for the injustices of this world. I want to die. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees constantly in pain. And you hear this framed as if this is some kind of heroic act, as if this is some kind of striking back against injustice by murdering children. Why would somebody believe something like that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely insane that they would believe something like that. But this person is clearly deranged. Right? They hate themselves. They hate everybody else. And so they determined completely nonsensically that they have to take children out. And children are also the embodiment of innocence, you know? It's people who have not, experienced the horrors of life or gone through intense difficulty. I mean, a lot of children do, but, you know, they don't look like it from the outside. And so you decide to just...
But when you're that blinded
someone
by hatred and depression and nihilism, that doesn't even register to you. If anything, you feel anger towards somebody who hasn't been faced, you know, has not had their life faced with those troubles yet. Like, they don't feel a sense of guilt for what they're doing in that context. They feel anger that person hasn't had to go through what they have.
Yeah.
Or in their mind that they have.
I'm thinking of a G.K. Chesterton quote, the early 20th century essayist, where he said, "What makes suicide so horrible is you do not murder a man, you murder all men.
Murder the whole world.
You murder the whole world." And I'm reading that, and that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that kind of logic playing itself out. If I am going to leave this world because I hate it so much, then my murder will be the murder of the world itself.
Think about that. Like, we used to live in a world where the discussion of suicide was something that could actually be extremely nuanced, where if somebody's going through cancer treatments, they don't want to go through this on their own. There was a societal argument about whether that person should have to face that on their own. But we're so far past that now that we have governments that subsidize it.
Right.
Like, we're long past the discussion about the sanctity of human life.
Right.
And why wouldn't somebody feel nihilistic and depressed when the media is telling you that a certain side of the political aisle is evil?
Yeah.
When a media is telling you that violence against them, maybe not in so many words, but you can only call somebody evil so many times before you're co-signing the idea that violence against this person is a just act.
We also have a problem, which is that morality itself stems from God, and it stems from God's teachings. And there is no morality without God. You have to base it in God's teachings, or otherwise you end up with some sort of freakish utilitarianism where everyone is just, pushing for the most happiness. And that doesn't work. And so what we have now is a culture that has abandoned God, but thinks it still has morality. And in fact, morality is essentially, at this point in American culture, a cultural lag. It is what is remaining. It is an echo of when we had a religious society. Now, the idea that, morality stems from God, I know is a controversial one in our atheist culture, but it is actually true. There is no logical reason to be good to other people.
Do you really believe that it's controversial? I mean, even someone like Nietzsche, who was
Well, maybe it's only controversial when I talk to my mother. So I don't know.
I mean, fair enough, but
Boomer or Xer.
My point is, the idea that morality is man-made in the absence of God is something that, again, it goes back to Nietzsche, which is like 150 years ago or whatever. Right. So I don't think it's particularly controversial. I think that, Nietzsche predicted essentially the whole of the 20th century, and he predicted the nihilism that we're kind of going through right now. This kind of stuff is directly, connected to nihilism and directly connected to the idea that nothing really matters if there is no God or whatever. So I just don't think that that's actually correct.
And you mentioned inversion, which I think is very interesting because the Bible's a very clever book. Because in Genesis 3, when the serpent first appears, you'll notice the entire scene is inverted from the natural order of Genesis 1 and 2. So it's the animal telling God creates the world, and he creates, it's God, it's man, and then it's woman, and then it's the animal life. But in Genesis 3, it's all inverted. So it's the animal that's calling the shots. It's then he's telling it to Eve. It's Eve now telling the man what to do, and God is completely forsaken. And so when then in the curses, when God is giving the cursing the ground and so forth, and you will feel pain in motherhood and so forth. And you'll crawl on your belly to the snake. It's a restoration of the right order again. But it seems like the clash between the city of God and the city of man is this clash between those who, like we were talking about earlier, rightly order our loves in accordance with God's economy of goods versus those who want to destroy that economy, invert it, and so on. And I think another thing that fits into it as well, the violation of politically correct norms justifies hitting back. That's why you can have every city in the nation burned down in the summer 2020. But don't you dare break a window in the Capitol. The difference is, one involved the supposed violation of politically correct norms, a white cop killing a black man. That's the picture that people had back then. So whereas the other one, it's a bunch of MAGA faithful, Nazis trying to destroy our democracy. And bottom line, I remember, just to wrap it up, I remember at the U.S. Open, like in tennis, when was it? Like 2018 or so, when I think her name was Osaka, beat Serena Williams. And Serena Williams had a meltdown in the championship on a court. And she was verbally violent towards the umpire. Absolutely, because he made a call she couldn't stand. And she couldn't recover, and she lost. And during the press conference afterward, she did not apologize. She justified herself. And she said, if I was a man, he would never have done that.
I remember this.
Do you remember that? If I was a man, he would. And I'm standing up for women's rights. That press pool gave her a standing ovation. Billie Jean King tweeted out and said, "You go, girl. We're behind you 100%." Do you see? You violate politically correct norms, you are allowed to strike back in violence.
So here's one of the reasons, and I've talked about this for a long time, that every time you get a revolutionary movement, every time you're going through a cultural revolution, and they're always Marxist, but even proto-Marxist, if it's the French Revolution, the inversion of the societal order requires an inversion of the moral order. But the problem with this is that you have believers.
Right.
You have religious faithful that are in your way.
Yep.
And so this becomes an issue for the revolutionary, it becomes an issue for the Marxist, it becomes an issue for the communist, because they do believe in a higher power. That higher power, in this case, of course, being God, that is above the state, that is above whoever's in charge of the government, that is above the Constitution as they've decided to twist it and add words to it and all the other stuff. And so this becomes exactly who they target, because they know that the source of all of the status quo, which, and by the way, even if you read this manifesto, that's essentially what this freak is saying, is that the world is unjust. I have to undo it. I have to strike back against that injustice. And now we don't know, Libby, fact check, you said you were arguing about that we're not sure whether or not he went to the school.
Yeah, we don't think he went to the school.
So we don't think he went there, but his mother worked there.
His mother
So
worked
there was
there.
some kind of familiarity with the school, probably through the mom.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you read the manifesto, just not to get too much into the back and all that, but you can see there's a schematic of the layout of the church. There's a map. There's an understanding of the schedule, what we would call pattern of life of this school. So there's a very strong familiarity. And in fact, in other parts of the manifesto, in some of these videos, he talks about going and performing basic reconnaissance to find shooting angles, to find ways to, can I target the playground from the AutoZone parking lot, and even writes this down. And by the way, I'm going to say that right now, had this video not been uploaded to YouTube and found by the people on social media, we never would have seen it.
Been buried.
We never would have seen
buried
this. This absolutely would have been buried. And that's not a knock on, Cash, Dan Bongino, or anybody. It's just, I think that the local politicians in Minnesota Tim Walz would have done everything they can to
Stonewall
bury this.
giving it to the FBI
They
and so
would,
on.
right. They would have just absolutely just shredded it or burned it or something. And so it talks about, I'm going to go to the AutoZone and pretend that I'm working on my car, but actually, because you could do that at AutoZone, you can work on your car in the parking lot. They'll let you borrow tools. But actually be looking at the kids, across the way. And I can make a joke about that, but I'm not going to, because we're under YouTube guidelines. And somebody got it.
Appreciate
that in this situation, it's this school is chosen probably because of the familiarity, but also because it's Christian. Yeah. So they always target Christians first. They always target the Christians. They go for the young because they view that as something that they know. They can sense that this is in their way. You see this in France. You see this in Spain. You, of course, see this in Russia during the revolution there as well. In China, of course, there's the traditional religion. It's not Christian, but it's also targeted as well. The Confucian temples and Buddhist statues are destroyed. And so, and what do you see here in the United States? Places of worship, children who are involved in literal worship are going on. And at the same time, what do we see? These politicians attacking the process of religious worship, starting, by the way, with the mayor of the city, Jacob Fry. And I waited all morning to see, do we have the clip? Do we have the actual clip of Jacob Fry? We should play this, because I waited like everyone. We're waiting all morning to find out what was going on, and then
that's the one.
No. This isn't the first one. I want to play the first one.
And keep in mind, this is the guy that was kneeling at the gold-draped coffin of George Floyd, and he's going to lecture us about prayer.
What are the odds that it's the same guy, the same city?
Same city.
He's still the same mayor, the same Hennepin County that lied about the George Floyd autopsy, that changed the George Floyd autopsy after pressure from the FBI. The great Liz Collin. Go follow all of her work, by the way. Yeah, this is the original one. And so everyone's waiting on, the whole country and all around the world are waiting to find out what happened. And even before the chief of police gets up and explains what happened on the ground and the situation, this is what we hear from Mayor Jacob Fry.
Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every...
Okay, so
Also, this is going to pivot to guns.
he immediately,
it's already
not only
pivoted to
does he
guns.
immediately politicize it,
Yes.
but he attacks Catholic families for praying and mocks. This is mocking. This is absolute mockery. Dr. Turley, is this mockery?
Yeah, I would say that's mocking.
Absolutely
That's
mockery.
scoffing and mocking.
It's scoffing and mocking. Don't just say this is about thoughts and
exactly.
prayers. Where is this coming from? People are looking for comfort. There are children's bodies with the blood wet. The church has yet to be cleaned of the blood of children.
And he's already rebuking everybody.
He's mocking and rebuking. This is a guy who hates Christians. It's so obvious to me that this is a guy who hates Christians, and specifically the Christian God. You notice, by the way, atheists always target the Christian God. Norm Macdonald talked about this. It's always the Christian God that gets the targeting. And we've seen this refrain now repeated again and again by Democrats all across the media. We saw Jen Psaki has a tweet up as well where we got it here. Prayer is not freaking enough. Prayers does not end school shootings. Prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers. And it was amazing because
It's just guns. It's just guns because people have said let's put armed security in schools and make it so these kids can feel safe going to school. And say no, kids
but
won't
that
be able
is-
to
that
learn
is
if we
good, 'cause
put.
She had another tweet where she was talking about having National Guard put mulch around DC. That's not effective. And I quoted that because I was like, "Are you saying that we should have National Guard at schools and churches?" Because on board, totally on board. When my son
Jen,
was
you're
in
actually
school
kind
in
of making the
Brooklyn-
point.
Yeah, making the
Yeah,
argument.
Making the argument why we should have the National
used to
Guard.
be the NYPD at my
which
son's
President
school.
Trump is trying to send to the cities for this express reason. This is something. So I interviewed Liz Collin earlier on Human
That was a
Events
great
Daily.
interview, yeah.
And it was a bombshell interview from Alpha News. She mentioned, by the way, that she used to send her kid to this school years in the past. So she was very familiar. Then they moved and they're a different area now. And she said that since George Floyd and Derek Chauvin have happened, this is probably the biggest news other than this story, but that may have led to this. So in 2020, started 2020, I'm trying to get the numbers right here. And again, this is her report, so go check with Alpha News on this, that at the start of the year of 2020, Minneapolis had 900 active duty police officers.
Oh, wow, yeah.
They are now down to 350.
Well, this was the city
Just
where
5 years.
George Floyd died in police custody in May 2020, and that the mayor Jacob Frey, who was the mayor then, he got down on his knees and he wept at the side of George Floyd's casket.
He'll pray to George Floyd.
He'll pray to George Floyd,
Which
and
is
he
prayer because
also-
that's his religion.
Right.
His
And when
religion
there
is
was
Golden
anti-racist.
calf, literally.
Yeah, and when there was a big protest, for George Floyd in Minneapolis, he got down with BLM and he was on his knees in the square. He encouraged them to take the statues
participated in
down.
riots.
He participated in
He
riots
until
and
the
he
point
was
where they threw him out.
yeah, and he was
right, I
pro
remember that,
defunding the police.
I was there. I'm from
Minnesota.
Minnesota. I was
Okay.
there in 2020. Okay, and that was at a time when politicians on the federal level, Kamala Harris, was putting bail reform
That's right.
stuff in their profiles. Which
Like
the
Minnesota
idea
Bail
is
Fund.
you take advantage of the well-meaning people who think that she's painting a picture in your mind that fascist cops are going around and just arresting people or holding up signs. You and I understand that that is not true. That these people were committing violent acts. There was billions of dollars of damage done. But the narrative that's painted in the minds of the people who don't, bless their souls, they don't take the time to think about this stuff. They've got kids, they've got families, they've got a life to live, and they're living under this delusion that politicians are well-meaning and that the media is well-meaning and they wouldn't lie to you. No, they want to bail out criminals because they want those acts to continue.
And in fact, she posted the link and was raising money for, I think they call it the Minnesota Freedom Fund or the Minneapolis Freedom Fund that went to the bail. So no, I'm sorry. They're saying your response to this is to attack prayer. Your response to this is to attack prayer. So what they're saying is, and the reason that they have to do this is to say they are siding with the shooter. They're saying, I understand why the shooter did this because we hate Christianity too. We're probably just not quite as radical as you are with it, but you're not wrong for hating Christianity. You're just wrong for, doing so a little bit too over the line. We're not ready to start purging the Christians now. But mark my words, every single time one of these organizations, one of these revolutions is let to go to its ultimate end, it always ends with dead Christians and dead Christian children. All I got to say to you, Mr. Mayor, is God will not be mocked.
And even beyond that, like if you think about what it was like when the Columbine in the 90s, and it was about nihilism and despair with teenagers, right? What that formed into as far as media framing was white male rage, that or guns. And so this forces them to pivot immediately to guns because they don't want to have a discussion about whether identity played a role in something like this. You could still have the discussion about depression and antidepressants and SSRIs, all these things that were in the manifesto that were talking about being depressed. But that's a very hard discussion because it's sitting right next to the issue with the fact that this individual is trans. And they do not want to have the discussion. And that's what I hate the most about media in politics is from the moment that he started talking, it was immediately to the guns. That's immediately where they're going to go. There was mocking of Christians in there for sure. But what I see right there is immediately pushing to your prayers aren't enough because we have something we need to stop.
Well, understand that we've gotten to a point in this country where Christians and specifically white Christians, and this school was vast majority white. If you look at any of the pictures coming out, and so it's been so derided as sort of the kulak class of America. This is the backbone of the middle class, etc. That in every revolution you must have a demon, and so their demon is white Christians, and so. It creates a problem for the left when they have to sort of pretend like they care about white Christians for a day or two. But even in that moment,
even do it for a minute,
Jacob Fry couldn't even do it. He couldn't even hold it for 1 minute to say and he still has this knee-jerk response to attack prayer and at a Catholic church. Again, as the blood is still wet on the children's bodies, he has to mock them. And we live in a society now where he will not be shamed. He'll probably be supported. And then you have Jen Psaki doing the same thing. And I believe Michael Steele, former, actually, at one point
RNC
somehow was an RNC chair. But he's effectively been a liberal for years at this point. And he was saying the same thing up on MSNBC.
Yeah, you're bringing up a brilliant point here.
Just to finish this off, name any other religion you could do that about. If this was a synagogue, if this were a mosque, would you hear anyone saying that kind of stuff?
Because it doesn't
Absolutely
fit into
not.
It doesn't
Absolutely
fit into
not.
the cultural Marxist binary of oppressor versus oppressed. And this is the brilliance, I think, of what you're talking about, because you're pointing out their bait and switch. So if this were a white person going in, right? If the cultural Marxist identity structures were affirmed today, they wouldn't be talking about if he walked into a black church and did this. Especially if it's a man, right?
Dylan Roof. We know this has happened.
So, and what do? They
don't side with.
What do they? They immediately make it all about identity. Immediately, and they generalize the identity that the shooter and the victims were microcosms of this larger oppression and this larger war that's happening in our country. But if you don't have the right identity boxes checked in a situation like that, there's a bait and switch. Well, we can't draw conclusions about
individual.
This was an individual. I mean, a Muslim. Islam is a religion of peace. We don't want to be Islamophobic. And so where do they go? They still got to go with some kind of progressive realist paradigm. So they go to the guns. You got to go.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because and Serge, you have the other clip of Mayor Fry, right? So he holds another press conference later in the day, and I know Post Millennial has there it is right there. Later in the day, and what does he say?
All of us. And I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity.
That's the script.
Insane.
That's the script.
We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone.
So listen,
we should be operating from a place of love for our kids.
I think he said the same thing on J6, didn't he? I think.
So listen to how animated he gets.
Yeah.
Suddenly, when it's the trans community, how dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you say anything about our beloved trans community? Don't you dare spread hate when he himself partook in spreading hate against Christian children who were killed just, I think hours before this took place.
Or the systemically racist police department of Minneapolis. And how dare they what they did to this is poor George Floyd and so forth. He has no problem scapegoating an entire community.
Where's that energy? Where's that energy?
Where
is
is it? Exactly.
The kids who actually died. So Phil, this was to your point. This is in his mind. This is it's so sad this happened, but we can't remember that the trans community are the real victims here.
Yeah, it is a little surprising that he's going on this, or that he's kind of using these talking points, especially considering how most of America really doesn't align with his opinion.
No, of course not.
The trans issue, the LGBT stuff, that has really been pushed to the back burner by a lot of Democrats that want to, to kind of catch the middle back and bring the middle back, because the left's further left proclivities or whatever, they're very unpopular with the American people, especially like trans stuff. It's been rejected pretty handily, and the fact that he's actually kind of jumping back into that leftist, very progressive kind of talking point, and also
the 80-20 doom loop.
Yeah, exactly. Like taking up the 20 side of an 80-20 issue. I'm a little on the
Why does he have to though? But he has to.
Whoa.
In his party, he has to, because just like Pete Buttigieg, what is he? This is a white male.
Yeah.
So as a white male in this party, he doesn't have any of the victim identity.
He's
cards.
also
but Gavin Newsom doesn't do that.
No,
Gavin
Newsom sort of hedges his bets, right? And if you look at the DNC annual meeting that they had this week in Minnesota, you will hear, what's his name, Keith Ellison from Minnesota, the Attorney General from Minnesota, talking about how great it is that so many Democrat-led states are suing the Trump administration over child sex changes. Now, they're not opposed to the child sex changes. They want more. Yes, they want more child sex changes. And everybody cheered for Mr. Ellison as he was standing there doing it.
Those are the committed activists.
Yes, those are the committed activists. But these are the leaders of the party, right? They don't have any leaders. Kamala Harris said that she's going on a listening tour because she wants to be an outsider politician. Gavin Newsom is the closest thing that they have to a leader, and he won't condemn child sex changes. Then you have Tish James, you have Ellison, you have Tim Waltz, you have Polis in Colorado. You have all of these people in favor of the stupid, idiotic thing that results in horrors for everybody.
So pull back.
And that's the Democratic Party. So you say that it's on the fringe, but I say that's the center of the party.
So that's what I want to ask you. It seems like, or it had seemed like, this was getting pushed to the side because it is unpopular with the American people. Do you get the sense that the overall Democrat Party is actually going to continue to push the progressive stuff? And the reason I ask is because this is a loser for them.
It is a loser for them, but here's something that they hate even more than white men and Christianity. They hate the American people, right? The Democrat Party hates Americans. They hang out in LA and New York and all of these beautiful cities that have terrible crime rates that really should not have terrible crime rates because they're great cities. But they hang out there and they look at everybody else and they say these people are uneducated and they're stupid and racist and homophobic.
Knuckle draggers.
And anti-trans. They're knuckle draggers. They're out there eating squirrels and we hate them. And so we have to drag them onto the right side of history and get them to do things our way because that's all we can do. And that's what the Democrats think of all of us. Remember, when they attack Trump, right? They say they hate Trump. They say resist Trump. But who else do they say they hate? Trump voters. They hate Trump supporters. They think we're all, white supremacist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, xenophobes who hate everybody. And so they hate all of us. That's what they think of us. And so maybe they will couch their opinions for a little bit. Maybe they'll say like, oh, maybe Mr. Lucy shouldn't play girls volleyball. But that's only going to be until they get some power back, and then they're going to shove it down our throats again.
For Gavin Newsom also, it's because I think he has national ambitions. And for a blue state Democrat that's solidly blue, he doesn't need to do that if he's not planning to go past the state level.
Well, I mean, I think you're probably right, but I do think, and look, this is just because I'm looking at the polls and I look at the way that people have reacted to the Democrat Party, and it would be my gut instinct if I were in his shoes to not jump back onto the 20 of an 80-20 issue.
Right.
And the Democrats overall, more broadly, they should do that. I think Libby's got a great point. Democrats do hate America. They hate the American people.
Post-Americanism.
They need Stephen A. Smith for 2028. That's what they need.
Yeah.
They really think of themselves as global citizens. They want that.
That's
kind
why
of
they're always
one
on the
world.
side of the illegal migrant.
Yeah.
That's why you see Bass out, the Mayor Bass, always on the side because they would rather have post-Americans as their constituents than actual Americans.
And that's why they don't actually want to change policy in order to win votes.
Right.
They want to change the law in order to retain power. It's not about representing people.
Right.
It's about stealing power. That's why they talk about expanding the states. That's why they talk about getting rid of the
Back in the court.
Back the court.
Back the court, getting rid of the Senate
filibuster.
Filibuster.
Get rid of
or even get rid of the Senate. I've heard.
Get rid of the
exactly.
Senate. It's
Right.
not about the
Yeah, they go that
They
way.
want to get rid of the
They want
Senate.
direct democracy.
They want to get rid of the Electoral College.
Yeah.
These are all ways.
Change the Constitution.
These are all ways.
Any law passed before 1964 Civil Rights Act is null and void because it was
These
an
are-
apartheid state.
These are all ways that they want to actually retain power in total defiance of the will of the American people. The American people do not find these policies
No,
popular at
not
all.
at all.
And they don't care to adjust their message to represent people. What they want to do is they want to control what the people think and what the people actually do.
I just want to throw out real quick here that maybe I offer something a little bit more positive because we just got, and I know a little early for the super chats, but I was late yesterday, but we just got one in here from Roberto saying that in keeping up with tradition, I'm super chatting from the labor recovery room, welcoming my first child into the world.
Bravo.
Say hello
Cheers.
to baby Sophia. Not replacement rate yet, but step one closer. So,
Congratulations.
2.1. You need 2.1.
population
That's it.
of patriots has increased
2.1
by
now, man.
1.
That's excellent.
Welcome, Sophia. Welcome to the fight.
That's awesome. Welcome to the
that's
fight,
great.
man.
We've had that's the second one this week actually.
Yep.
That's so great.
We had a couple in PCC as well. with
Nice.
People. Yep.
Love that.
That's
Very
amazing.
cool.
So we're talking. You mentioned
absolutely.
the illegals, but we're got some.
Absolutely,
some
and
folks in the fight
religious
as well.
conservatism is the number one indicator for reproductive trends. So one of the coolest things that we are seeing among red states, one of the reasons why the political power is shifting to the reds. What are they talking about? A 14-point swing by 2030. It'll be sooner if we get a census before then. That doesn't include illegals, but we got a 14-point electoral swing to red states, not just because of left-UGs who have left California and so forth, but also because religious conservatives are having more kids than ever, while secular liberals have largely stopped having kids. So
Well, not just stopped having kids, but are also.
yeah, literally. Yeah, revert the other way around. Exactly. Yeah. So that's one of the most beautiful things. Eric Kaufman, University of London scholar, wrote a book in 2013 called The Religious Shall Inherit the Earth. You guys will love this. He predicted, because of these trends, that by 2030, the culture wars would shift dramatically to the right. By 2030, the culture wars will shift dramatically to the right.
If you look at
2013. But just by he's a demographer. And what year do we expect to see the right ascend as the major electoral power? 2030.
If you look at Gen Z, they're strong. Like Gen Z young men are very strongly to the right.
Oh yeah.
Well, this is falling
only
on gender
problem-
lines now.
Yeah,
too.
but it is. But the only problem that I see with that, not that I'm saying that he's wrong, the only problem that I see with that is there are very few Gen Z compared to
Oh, sure, the
Gen X.
larger,
It's like
yeah,
it's just a small number of people. I think
because
75
so
million.
many of them were aborted.
Well, yeah, I mean
And
that
what's weird is Gen X was already really small.
Yeah, Gen X was small. But what is neat with Gen Z, the New York Post had a really good article on this, that for the first time that they can remember, sociologists found that men were more religious than women. Did you guys see this? This was just a few weeks ago. In sociology, women being more religious than men in terms of identifying as religious, that's almost like a rule, an axiom of sociology. For the first time, they now see more men, and it was a large number, if I recall. It was even double digits or so, 13% or so. Majority of men saying, yeah, I'm religious. They're calling it the Jordan Peterson phenomenon. You want to talk about God writing straight lines with a crooked stick? He used a secular Canadian psychologist to bring all these men to church. And we've talked about this, Jack, and they're not just going to happy, clappy churches. They're going to really hardcore traditionalist churches.
I think too that you're starting to see this generation that, and when you talk about Gen Z, you could also bifurcate it into the really just the 18 to 22s currently. So the younger end of Gen Z is even far more to the right than all of Gen Z, and particularly with the men. Because why was this? This was the COVID generation.
Yes.
And this was the generation who, not figuratively, literally had years of their childhood, 2.5 years of their childhood, their absolute most precious
stripped.
formative years, just completely stripped from them. And they saw the government do that. They saw what happened. They saw that all of the institutions failed, completely failed. Meanwhile, what was happening in the streets, and here we are again, Minneapolis, right? Starting in Minneapolis, the burning of the streets, the attack on the 3rd precinct that spread across the entire country. Meanwhile, they were told they had to shelter in place and take an experimental drink that. I know, Serge.
Well
I don't know what the line is on that these days, but an experimental
Where you can't get to college.
an experimental
right.
juicy juice. If you wanted to participate in society,
Right.
And so they're mad.
Yeah.
And they want revenge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just right-wing politics either, though. They feel like they've been sold a lie in the country in a lot of ways. College is now vastly been proven for a lot of them, unless you're going to be a doctor, something that requires accreditation, that it's a debt trap that's going to keep you in prison for years. And women are graduating colleges at higher rates. Obviously, like you said, it seems to be that there's more atheism showing up around college, around women, because in a lot of ways, the university has become their god, or social justice has become
women,
their god.
they become
many
more
ways.
liberal.
I do think for Gen Z, I worry more than some people, I think, that they're going to turn to a communist state eventually, because the financial problems that they're facing are so great and so vast, and it seems so hard to, like with housing rates, what they are, interest rates, they don't see a path forward. And what they're just waiting for is a charismatic person from the other side of the aisle. You know what Bernie Sanders would have been in 2016 with a populist message saying, I'm here to help.
This is why someone like, and I know there are a lot of people out there that hate when I say this, but this is why someone like AOC is such a dangerous politician. She has very far left, impulses, and she's very charismatic. She gets a ton of people on her.
She's a very talented politician.
Yeah, exactly. She's a very talented politician. She's very charismatic. She's really good at connecting with her followers, or connecting with people. And whether you like I don't like any of her policies. I don't think.
You're being descriptive,
but
I was on board for stopping politicians from being able to trade stocks. I was on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, a broken clock's right twice. But the fact of the matter is, someone like that can. That's why I harp on the economy all the time. If the economy is bad, come 2028, someone like AOC can get into office, because the voting public is going to be like, well, the conservatives didn't do it.
Right.
The MAGA people didn't do it. I don't feel any better. And it really will make for a serious problem for the United States, because that means more money printing. That means more devaluing of the currency. Good.
No, I was just going to say that this is the two sides of Gen Z, right? Mm-hmm. So Gen Z has no middle. From what we're seeing in the data, it's either you're all the way super pro-Trump or even beyond that, where you're saying Trump isn't going hard enough, like he's not deporting enough, he's not locking up enough, he's not, sending enough troops out there. And that's one side. The other side is Luigi Maggioni. The other side is this trans shooter saying, "I want to burn it all down."
I mean, that's an even better example. I wish I would have thought of that earlier, talking about when they feel like they can do the most horrific things and find their own justification for it. This guy who's a CEO who, under our laws, has not committed any crimes, and there were millions of people justifying those actions.
Oh yeah, was it Taylor Lorenz? I don't want to ascribe the person.
Yeah, no, she was. She was
she's the one who said, "I feel joy."
Yeah, I feel joy.
Right? Piers Morgan
joy.
was like, he was shocked that someone would be that open about it. But again, there you go. I mean, if you violate politically correct norms, you get excommunicated.
Well, and all of this comes back on the heels of the fact that and this is going to sound like a lefty kind of thing to say, but the 1% in this country, the elite in this country, are doing so well right now, and they are so divorced from where the working class is. They are so divorced from the pressures that the middle class is facing, particularly from the migrant crisis, as well as just every institution, everything that's supposed to be working in society feels like it's falling apart. And meanwhile, you can go online and it's like, oh, here's another mega billionaire getting married. I'm not going to say it, but and here's this thing going on. Meanwhile, I can't afford rent, or you get a toothache and you go to see a specialist and the insurance is run out for the year, and now that's $2,000 out of pocket. Well, you're just going to go back to work because you can't afford to get the work done, and suddenly you might get to the point where you say, you know what, maybe I do want to burn it all down.
I don't know. I don't think that's even a lefty idea. I think that they come down on opposite sides of how to fix it. And a lot of times they see it as a capitalist system that's failed to live up to what it's been said to be, whereas the right sees it as an issue of regulation, and that the system's been created through loopholes and cronyism to give them a step over all of the regular person. Like when you look at who's invested in the market, it's like high 90s%. It's people that are in the top 10% of the income bracket, and very few people that are living either paycheck to paycheck or their family has a modest savings are really able to invest in the market in any way that's going to meaningfully change their financial future. And it's just more an issue of where you believe the problem comes, and that just depends on where you get your news in a lot of ways. The person who's telling you that Jeff Bezos is the problem, that depends on whether you believe that it's a net positive for society to create a whole bunch of jobs and give you the option of receiving almost any product in the world at your house in 2 days. And do you see that as a benefit to our society, or do you see it as something that it's just people lining the pockets of somebody who's worth billions of dollars? And I think that speaks more to their world.
Actually, and someone just mentioned this in the chat. I totally missed this earlier, and Libby, we should definitely write this up. In one screen grab of the manifesto, there are Luigi stickers.
Oh, is that right?
All over the manifesto. So it's and there are no Mario stickers there. It is all Luigi stickers.
Because there's a Luigi musical in San Francisco right now.
Yeah.
So
I think
there you go. So
extended it.
Luigi you get, and so this is the difference, right? You get Luigi or you get MAGA.
Right.
And
Bill Burr co-signing what Luigi did.
Bill Burr said it was
Insane.
great. So when we put out the book Unhumans last year, this is what we talked about. We said the situation's gotten to the point where either we are going to have a populist solution to it, whereby we don't, and on the MAGA side, we don't demonize people for being successful. We don't. In fact, we champion people for being successful as long as they do so in a, shall we say, non-parasitic, non-cheating, cronyist kind of way.
Aristopopulism.
Exactly.
Is referred to,
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's a nice. I think that's Patrick Deneen.
And so, Deneen's good. I'm going to see him next week at NatCon.
Oh, cool. Yeah, doing NatCon. Awesome. Yeah.
And so what we want is to take the floor from where it is and raise it up.
Yes.
So raise the floor up for everybody.
Yeah.
But what the communist wants is to tear it down.
Exactly.
Brick by absolute brick. And here's what's so interesting, and you see this again and again in these studies that we did, these case studies. they don't actually go after the super rich first. They go after the well-off middle class.
Sure, just like in the French Revolution.
For example, they're not targeting like the super rich billionaires. They're not targeting the super rich even of the elites. But what they might do is say, oh, I don't know, if you can afford to send your kids to a private religious school.
Right, but they didn't shoot up, whatever the boarding school is out there.
Do you think part of the reason why that is because when you're dealing with people that are billionaires, like actual billionaires, they're so disconnected and cut off and isolated from the rest of society? Where if you're dealing with someone that's like a millionaire, that's like the CEO of United Healthcare, he was like he was worth something like $44 million, which is a lot of money, but that is a world of difference between billionaires, right? Do you think that it's just an access thing? The people that are worth 10, 20 million, they're actually walking among us, whereas people that are worth billions and billions of dollars, like they don't actually mingle with the average people. Do you think that's
yes and no, but what's interesting though is that you see these patterns echo for the past 250 years. We've seen this pattern play out again and again and again, and it is typically the scions of those same families. So it's typically upper middle class individuals that turn to this level of radicalism. Luigi Maggione's family, very, very wealthy. Yeah. In this case, we mentioned before that this, it looks like obviously these surgeries or these hormone replacement therapy, it's very expensive to get into, and yet it looks like this person was undergoing them, had a family that worked at the school, was involved with the school in this private education world. So again, like they were well off.
Speaking of the family, we haven't touched on this, but has anyone heard about a father? We know that the mother signed off.
Yeah, so there were some people going in and finding tweets or Facebook posts from the dad where he was celebrating his daughter. Celebrating his daughter's birthday, co-signing the mental illness, and even also they found some posts from the dad celebrating the conviction of Derek Chauvin.
We have a striking,
and I don't mean, and I don't mean saying, I don't mean like saying, I don't have the exact post in front of me, but it wasn't saying like, oh, justice has been done, and this was good that that it happened. It was cheering, it was adulation,
That's
it was
right.
celebratory.
Burn the witch.
So and I'm trying to be cognizant of the time, and we could go off on all this in every direction. But one thing that I do want to get into is there is this tension, right, that has come up. And so, okay, thoughts and prayers, so, thoughts and prayers, well, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's not the purpose of thoughts and prayers, right? Which by the way, to your point, conservative religion is far more religious. They're also more likely to be the gun owners and the ones to understand that you need to take physical steps to protect your property and your family and your children.
I was at the range myself today.
There you go.
Skill, man.
They're creating helplessness. That's the whole point.
Right.
So this is what we should talk about, though, is there is a school safety issue in this country.
Yeah.
And there is a tension between where we are as a country and where certainly we have a problem with school shooters, and it's silly to claim that we don't.
In Scandinavia, they have a problem with school stabbers.
They certainly do, exactly. and even then, like I don't want to go and talk about some other country. We live here, so what do we do? And I think clearly for religious school, this is something that I've brought up before. When it comes to religious schools, you set up programs, and there should be 501c3s set up, religious nonprofits set up, where you take former law enforcement, former veterans, and you set it up so that each school can have someone that is armed, that is security, that is there, that's able to be around in case of a situation like this. I hate that we have to talk that way, but I want my kids to be safe.
Right.
There was a vote on my local ballot last year about finding more money to put resource officers, aka cops, security in schools, and that passed pretty overwhelmingly. And now there's cops in schools.
Yeah. That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I mean, bottom line, safety and security is second only to food, air, and water, right? So what do you have? 5 levels of needs. First one is breathing, eating, and so forth. But then the second one is shelter, it's safety, it's security. This is why I just think what Trump is doing in D.C., and you're seeing it firsthand, and what he's promising to do in Chicago and Baltimore and so on, is brilliant. Because, I mean, look at how it worked out for Nayib Bukele of El Salvador. You know what?
Bukele, all the cities.
Yeah, I would turn it into a verb. Turn it into a we Bukele at all the cities, and then he goes for re-election, wins with 85% of the vote. The claim that this is somehow unconstitutional or we're losing our freedoms and so forth just ends up falling into dust when you can't trust whether or not you let your kids off at school in the morning. Are they going to be safe? That's a prison. Or you can't go outside at night after 8 p.m. That's a prison. So Bukele proved that if you meet Maslow's hierarchy of needs, particularly safety and security, we were just talking kind of the socialism, that was the food and the water and the, just basic material conditions. But right on top of that is you've got to have safety and security. And if you don't have safety and security, you're not free. And I think Trump has a real golden moment.
I think the people who are making if you were a non-leftist, a non-partisan making an argument against Trump in this case, it would be because it's a states' rights issue, right? That they're saying that you're bringing in federal officers where it's something that should be left to the states because it's not your job. I got DC, right? DC is federal, right. Makes perfect sense to me. I did see the video of Fat JB Pritzker, like, I'm on the waterfront at 6 a.m. Like, criminals aren't out at 6 a.m. I'm sorry.
Right. Did you see the Pritzker video where he was like, Trump should come out here and see what we're doing, and he was like literally next to Trump Tower.
In front of Trump International Plaza.
Wait, where are all the Democrats now saying that cities are safe? By the way,
right.
Where are all the Democrats go today?
They're still out there.
Well, they're telling us not to pray because there was a horrible attack, but I haven't heard.
Well, here's what they don't want us to pray.
Right.
They don't want us to bring in law enforcement.
Right.
They don't want us to put curfews on young people.
Right.
They
shut up and be a victim.
Right. That's what they want.
Shut up and be a victim.
The thing is also is the argument also to the contrary that for somebody who, if you're living in Chicago, if you're living in Illinois, that they're not going to vote in politicians who will put in people in law enforcement that will actually be able to uphold the law in a way that keeps people safe, and that this is a Band-Aid until the next administration comes in, and then it gets removed and things go right back to the way they were. And some people's argument may be that they need to feel the pressure to finally put somebody into power that will do this at the state level so that the federal government doesn't get accused of encroaching where they don't have a right to be. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what I believe. I'm saying I understand that argument if you're worried about federal overreach.
Let me toss this out then as well to the mix, because Libby, you probably have a better number than me, but this is how many times have we seen these mass shooters and they turn out to be trans? They turn out to be involved in some kind of either hormone replacement therapy or the SSRIs, and we have this mass mental illness problem going on, and we claim it's a mass shooting problem, but actually there are these connections. Do we have an issue in this country where we've got millions of guns in this country, and we also have millions of people on SSRIs, and now more and more people on hormones? How do you balance this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a real problem. And yeah, we had Minneapolis, Nashville, Denver, Aberdeen, Philadelphia, Colorado Springs. Like, a lot of people who are caught up in this gender cult have come out and started killing other people en masse, and that's a real problem. How do you prevent something like that? Well, I think that there's far too much prescriptions of like psychiatric medication on young people. I think that's been going on since the 90s with Ritalin and Adderall and all of the rest of it. I've seen devastating effects on, friends and younger siblings and stuff with those kind of drugs. Then there's the SSRIs, which I don't know if anyone's ever taken though. Like, I took those like just for fun one time because whatever. Anyway, I took one and it was terrible. And I was like, gosh, how would you like it?
You wouldn't feel the effects till it has to build up in your system.
No, it made my eyes bug out and I couldn't. It was like very bad, but maybe I took too many. I don't know, but whatever. Yeah, I think that those are pretty bad. You've seen the effects. People get really like their personalities get washed out. I think the cross-sex hormones are a really bad idea. RFK came out just today with a whole new thing about nutrition and putting proper nutrition education into pre-med programs in order to deal with preventative diseases. And I think there's a lot to be said for eating right and exercising and seeing friends, making friends, going to church, and realizing that the individual self is not something to believe in, right? Like we hold ourselves up as these mini gods. And in fact, we should be looking outside of ourselves. We should be looking to God for meaning. We should be looking to
worship a God.
relationships.
So
you worship God. So then you can
worship self.
Yeah, you should never be worshiping the self. Gender is not the soul. Your mental illness is not something to celebrate.
But this topic is going to get turned to firearms and is going to talk
that's what I'm
about.
trying to ask.
Yeah. So Phil, what are the laws on the books as far as being on prescription medications and owning firearms?
I don't know specifically what the.
I know you can't have like a weed card and
when it yeah. So if it's anything illegal, federally illegal, and you're the 4473, which is the form you have to fill out to actually acquire a firearm, it asks if you're on any kind of illicit drugs. I'm not sure what the legality is regarding things that are prescribed. So if someone's given a prescription for something like SSRIs or whatever, if you're taking those and your doctor prescribes them, I don't know what the legality is about that. I don't think that there's anything. I don't think there's anything prohibiting that, at least on a federal level. So,
which by the way, this Robert would have had to lie about to get these guns because I think these are recent purchases. So I don't know the exact time frame, but it seems as though he purchased these firearms possibly while working at a cannabis dispensary. Yeah. So he would have had to fill out the forms.
So he lied on his 4473, so he's a felon.
Yeah. And the thing is with these topics is it always ends up being a Trojan horse to take your guns.
Right.
They find a way to turn this into an issue where it's like, I saw some people do this. They're like, can we finally talk about the guns? Remember that one? You always hear that one when these topics happen. Can we finally talk about the guns?
But that's
what do they mean when they say talk about the guns? Like, what do you want to talk about?
But
you want to talk about going around and confiscating guns from everybody?
Like they're
do you think
doing
that's
in
going to be
Canada with
effective?
their, like,
Do you think people are going to
mandatory
give their guns
buybacks?
up in the United States? It's not going to happen.
But they think that this
problem
kid
with
wouldn't have done that. This guy wouldn't have done that. He would have, like you said, he would have stabbed the kids if this was in another country.
So here's the question though is, and I'm trying to open this up a little bit, and so I guess it's what if you? So you're talking about so marijuana is still on the form.
Yes.
What if you added that? What if you added what type of prescription drugs are you on, and to that form as well?
The problem with that, the people that are against it are going to say that's a violation of their privacy.
And like their HIPAA.
Yep,
and whatever.
HIPAA laws and stuff like that. They're going to say, look, you can't ask that because this is something that's private between me and my doctor. So and whether or not people are pro or against this, there's also the argument that would come up saying,
But they keep killing people.
I mean, look, if you use that argument, they're going to say, well, then just get rid of the guns. That's what the argument will be. The guns are killing people. It's not the drugs. It's the guns.
Drugs,
Yes,
drugs.
SSRIs are helping
He was
people. They're
depressed.
making people better.
He was depressed.
And
That's why-
I'm against. Obviously, I'm only telling you what the arguments are going to be.
No, and I'm forcing the argument because I think it's an argument whose time has come. Right? We can't be a country that has both of these things, of mass medication, mass psychological and psychiatric medication that so many people are on, which, by the way, and the way we deal with mental health in this country is such a joke. Now, I think the original way around this trap was much simpler. And if you go back, and I was digging into this before to the show, and the history of this country is very simple, that under the madhouse laws of English common law, if you go back to Blackstone and all the rest of this, it was very simple. If you were a lunatic, you got thrown in the asylum.
Right.
And there wasn't any question about, and actually prior to asylums, you were thrown in prisons.
Right.
And in fact, Benjamin Rush, who founding father adjacent, I suppose you could say. He was basically the doctor of the founding fathers, Philadelphia area, by the way.
Yeah.
Philly. That he was one of the first people to start pushing for psychiatric hospitals and saying we shouldn't just lock the lunatic up in jail anymore. And one of the first psychiatric hospitals was they were keeping lunatics chained in the basement of a public hospital and then open that up to a psychiatric wing of a hospital. So I guess my point being is that if we went back to treating mental illness by first separating them from society rather than handing them a prescription and then putting them back into Gen Pop, we could at least get to a place where we don't have to worry about the liberty being infringed of going and taking away somebody's guns.
Yeah.
So it's all Ronald Reagan's fault, is what you're saying. It's the shutting down
that
of
when
the
they were
asylums.
released?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all
in the
Ronald
80s.
Reagan's fault. I mean, that's a hard one for a
There
lot
were
of people.
plenty of Democrats who were involved in that.
because
And
because-
Hollywood too, with Jack Nicholson and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
And Ronald Reagan as well.
So much of what we see today, society has been streamlined in a way that just like most people can find a way to live in adulthood on their own without, needing necessary assistance because they can take medication and all these things, and you can't backtrack society away from that. And locking them up is going to prove harder to do now because they'll find a way around it in the DSM. I imagine that there's all sorts of way around it. Say they're properly medicated, they've been reintroduced into society. There's no reason for us to lock them up again. And we see like these days there is a stigma against the asylums.
Yeah. And not that I'm making the argument always comes up. If you allow the federal government or the state to involuntarily commit people, then there's the possibility that the state starts saying that people that just have your opinion are insane.
Well, we do have those laws.
Well,
already.
but hold on. What do you like? So we were talking about how Christians are basically under attack by leftists, right? What happens when a leftist, and again, this is the argument. I'm not actually for this, right? But the argument that you hear is what happens when a far left government gets in control and they start saying, if you believe in God, you're crazy.
Well, we already have involuntary commitment laws, though. I think in pretty much every state.
Do we?
Yes.
Involuntary?
Yes.
I don't know about that. And the reason I say that is because so many of the homeless people that are on the street are on the street because they have a mental illness, often mixed with a drug addiction, and that's the reason.
In
why
New
they
York,
can't.
it's 5150. In Pennsylvania, it's I think 302'd is something. It's involuntary commitment. And you can be put on psych hold, which is a form of involuntary commitment.
What I'm talking about is not just like, okay, are they because I think what you're talking about is are you in immediate danger? But I'm talking about if you are mentally ill with a chronic mental illness. I don't think that the state can commit you. They can take you off the streets, make sure that you're not a danger to yourself, an immediate danger to yourself or a danger to people around you, but they can't hold you, they can't commit you indefinitely, which is what is kind of on the table here, and I'm looking to see.
Well, and what I'm saying though is that well, I mean, I'm arguing for a change to law, obviously, and I'm arguing that. I mean, and I want to get Dr. Turley in on this as well because I mean, this is becoming a public health issue, and it's now you're talking about, and this is the difference. So okay, right? I don't want to violate. Can't violate HIPAA. All right, but what happens when it becomes a public safety issue?
Yeah.
Because now here's somebody who's on these HRTs, then and on cannabis, by the way, then walks over to the gun shop and says, "Hey, I want to buy some guns,"
Right.
and the gunner doesn't have to ask, because none of these systems talk to each other,
Right.
And is writing things like this up and down. And I'm sorry, it just seems that there should be a public policy response to all this.
Yeah, I'm actually fascinated by this. I'm sitting back kind of going, wow, this is great. This is neat. I gotta do a video on this sometime, do some research on it. I do think if politics, to the point of if we do it this way, if the leftists get into power, then they can start imprisoning Christians like they've done in the Soviet Union and so on.
I mean, like they were doing for the last 4 years.
Exactly, or J6, exactly. If politics is downstream from culture, then this is it's. I don't know if there's going to be a simple technical solution to this. It looks like it's going to be a cultural solution. One of the things I was thinking about is, for example, I forgot who it was, theologian who pointed out, 200 years ago, if a person was depressed, they would go to church to pray. Today, they go to the mall to shop. And there's something about being able to buy your happiness. There's something about being able, through some kind of fix, to resolve whatever tensions and issues you have that seems to be very much at the heart of a modern sense of life. Modernity tends to be rooted in technology, and technology, by its nature, is control. And so we tend to look for technological solutions to what are often very spiritual, and very deep, and very moral problems. So this, again, it kind of goes full circle to what you were saying earlier. This is why I love the way how Maha and MAGA have been kind of hooked up together. We can't really save the country until we first, in a sense, and I use this in a thoroughly conservative sense, until we save ourselves, as it were. Until we take our spiritual lives seriously, our relational lives seriously, our physical lives seriously, our financial lives seriously, our professional lives seriously, until we start taking control by the grace of God of our own health. No pills, no techniques are going to solve it. Now, if that catches fire, I think there's something to this. I think we can then find the political downstream of how we handle this. But until we get that full sort of faith, family, and freedom vibe absolutely pushing the radical left to the 20% in terms of their power, not just in terms of their popularity. Until then, yeah, it's a risky thing, because when they get into power, they're going to use it in their own
Look, I think if we can use power, we can.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Before we push back out this, there was a piece that I really wanted to hit today, which I think speaks to all of this. This was known.
Yeah.
This was a known threat.
Right.
And here are the facts. DailyWire.com, the great Mary Margaret Olahan has the story up. Minnesota Catholic school leader warned Tim Walz of critical school safety threats. He did nothing. And this was in a letter 2 years before all of this. So back when the Tennessee Christian school, the Nashville shooting took place, there was a letter that was written to Governor Tim Walz asking for extra funding for and pointing out to a lack of security at Christian and religious schools because they were considered non-public schools.
Right.
And so public schools were getting ample security, but these non-public schools were not getting the same level of security. So he points out that in the letter, there were 72,000 students in independent Catholic, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim non-public schools within the state of Minnesota, saying our schools are under attack, particularly even at the time, Jewish and Muslim schools, but we're writing about the Christian schools as well, experience increased levels of threats. We need to take this very seriously. We need to ensure all our schools have these resources. And they were begging Tim Walz for this money. Instead, Tim Walz was working to protect transgenders and signed legislation establishing Minnesota as a trans refuge. So, look, they had the money, and that's where they sent the money. They knew that there was a lack of security, and potentially even the shooter knew that there was a lack of security, because what did the shooter say that he was doing? Was conducting this reconnaissance prior to conducting the attack and noting that there was this lack of security, which presumably these public schools would not have had.
Right. I mean, another thing we could take solace in is since the 2020 Summer of Love, gun control is at its lowest level of support it's been like in decades, and then and that's just the aggregate. When you break it down between blue states and red states, any kind of majority, and it's slim, 52, 53%, ends up disappearing outright.
29 states are constitutional carry.
Exactly. And then you have, of course, almost 2,500 or so Second Amendment sanctuaries among the counties. And then even those who support gun control, even though it's like number 9 out of the 10 priority issues. So it's not a winning issue. And then you have a Supreme Court that's been pretty consistent in shooting down any challenge to the Second Amendment. So I think we're in good shape with that, and that's why I don't think they really go very far with it. They'll try. Even Obama tried to whip up some anti-Second Amendment sentiment, but it disappeared very quickly.
A big part of the reason is because the left tend to focus on semi-automatic rifles,
right?
Which, when you look into the numbers, there's something along the lines of it averages about 300 murders per year with a semi-automatic rifle.
Right?
What?
It's all handguns, right?
Yeah, it's all handguns.
Yeah,
It's something. There's usually average of about 10,000 murders a year in the United States. 10,000 in a country of 330 million. That's actually
pretty very per capita,
considerable.
Right.
And then when you take just rifles, like I said, it's like 300 or so average. It fluctuates a little bit. Everything's handguns. And if you ask the average person, they'll say, well, even people that are like against guns, they're like, oh, weapons of war shouldn't be on the street, et cetera. But then they say, well, what about handguns? Well, I think I should be able to have a handgun in my dresser in case someone breaks in. Right. So even once you get down into the nitty gritty about gun control, it's unpopular with the vast majority of American people.
There was a very interesting study. You may have read it called Shooters. Are you familiar with that term, Shooters?
I'm not.
Abigail, I can look it up. If you look at the author's name was Abigail something, and it's a doctoral dissertation from the University of Berkeley, Berkeley, okay? Mm-hmm. And she is a huge advocate for what she just simply calls the gun community. Mm-hmm. And she's a cultural anthropologist who studied the gun community, particularly in California, and she was blown away at how diverse it was. She started off being against it, and thinking she was dealing with a bunch of rural, whites in Shasta County or something like that. These patriot militias and so forth. She suddenly realized, wait, there's LGBT, there's black people are one of the biggest supporters of gun rights, and women in particular. And all of a sudden she realized this is one of the most diverse, widespread coalitions in the country. Vermont, is where I'm from. Delaware is as blue of a state as you can get. I can go into any gun shop, give them my license, and in 15 minutes I'm out of there with a Glock. No problem whatsoever. I've done it. So the point is that more and more, I think, the left is doing what they can, sort of galvanize what's left of just a shattered coalition. Because remember, the left's coalition became Trump's coalition. The working class became, this is a Newsweek article back in May, white working class in 2016, then the non-white working class in 2024. The Obama coalition is now the Trump coalition. The Democrats don't have a coalition.
No, they've really they've done so much hollowing out of their support. They really have a lower class or poor, basically poor people that are on some kind of government assistance that are reliably Democrat, and then there are the elites, the elites.
People. You got it. Really, so the underclass and then the super class.
Yeah, exactly. The middle class has moved basically to Donald Trump.
We saw it in Chicago with Mayor Johnson. The working class in Chicago, voters, Democrats, they were supporting the law and order guy. In the Chicago mayoral campaign, they were all for the law and order guy. It was the elite bougie whites. And the what is it, the Miracle Mile, whatever it is. It's the elite bougie whites with the underclass that teamed up.
With the managerial class.
The managerial class, perfect. Managerial class with this sort of underclass, they teamed up and they put in. And we're going to see the same thing in New York.
Yeah.
With Mamdani, exact same
which
thing.
Is part of the reason why the left is actually goes after the middle class and tries to do what it can to
erode them
and put as many people into the poor or the rich.
Right. A great, Scott Greer had a great bifurcation of the race in the Democrat primary in New York, talking about the Zohran Mamdani, and he was saying the yuppies weren't really for Mamdani. They were kind of split between Cuomo and Adams, the current mayor. And so the yuppies, of course, what does that stand for? Young urban professionals, right? The yuppies. And so he said, but what you saw going for Mamdani was actually the young urban creatives, or the term that he came up with. It is so good. The yuckies. The yuckies. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So shout out to everyone who is an adherent to the Greerhead pledge, of which I am, including the old one. But before we go, we have a ton of super chats. Got to get to them. So, a lot of these, by the way, tonight are just comments rather than questions. So let's go with it. Shane Wilder, who's here yet again. Mayor Frey is an idiot. I'll be praying a Divine Mercy chaplet for victims of the shooting at Annunciation Catholic School tonight. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundui miserere nobis. I didn't know I was going to Latin there, but nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, amen. And I've got my St. Michael the Archangel rosary right here with me. It's been with me all day.
Shane H. Wilder is reliably Catholic, and he's here all the time. So
let's go. This from HS Disturbed. Are the accounts saying the shooter was a Trump supporter real people or bots? What is the breakdown of this moronic death cult? Yeah, I saw some people trying to Photoshop like a MAGA hat onto the shooter, and it was just, it's just ridiculous. I don't know where it's from. I think it's just disaffected leftists, because this is sort of an example of, when prophecy fails, so the cognitive dissonance kicks in, and they have to do something to claim that it was the other, because again, in their philosophy, it is Trump and Trump supporters that are destroying the country. So they have to find a way to dissociate them from this, which again, even Jacob Frey, that's the cognitive dissonance that's driving him to attack prayer, because he's so physically upset and uncomfortable about what's going on. He has to push it off into another vector. And that's why he has that response.
And as a mode of control, all it takes is just one person believing it. That's all it takes. Like every time somebody posts a fake post like that.
Oh, I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I heard that. So it becomes this false
exactly, like
to get out of the cognitive dissonance trap.
Even when I saw the posts initially, it was from like Right Angle News or something like. I don't buy anything now until I have to see a lot of people. Because the internet being what it is, especially with X being a monetized platform, I don't, and it's kind of sad. Like in current year, I don't believe anything anymore unless been proven beyond the shadow.
It used to be that you could just count on a tweet to be pretty much true, and that is no longer true.
No. Brett, I want to point out, remember, there was a lot of people that were sure that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift were fake.
That's
true.
They
were sure that back around the Super Bowl, they were sure it was fake.
Oh, really?
Now people were swearing up and down, and I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe they might be real.
Still might be fake.
Still might be fake.
It's moving the goalpost down here.
She's still obviously a
Get it?
psyop.
Goalposts.
I mean, not getting into it. Promise I wasn't going to get into it. All I'll say is green lines. This super chat from DF2992. I'm really beginning to think Tim Walz was really telling the truth when he said he is friends with school shooters. Remember, he said it.
Yep.
He said it. I mean, this
Sure
guy,
did.
he just keeps coming up. It's crazy. People saying big shocker. We're getting answers. Source code of the universe. So just a stupid glazé. A grand jury refused to indict the DC sandwich thrower. So we're now seeing jury nullification from the grand jury side, which is going to be a huge problem for a lot of these cases in Washington, D.C., because that D.C. jury pool, even for the grand juries, refuses. Yeah. And by the way, you can bring charges without going to a grand jury. So you're just going to have to start doing this.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you got it on film. This is
the sandwich. The sandwich.
Yeah. DOJ. He was a DOJ employee.
Sure was.
Of course.
Yeah, was.
Yeah.
And he didn't just throw it. Didn't he hit him with it? Like he shoved him with it?
Wait, Serge, go back up. Clothy Swiss, reset the clock. Mm-hmm. Reset the clock. Another trans shooter. Reset the clock. There you go. What's this? Yeah, I like this one. Jacob Hawley. We must unite and stand together to protect our faith. I don't care if you're Catholic or Orthodox or Protestant. We are being targeted. We must be prepared to defend our faith, our community, friends, and family. Keep your head on a swivel. Hear, hear.
Yep, hear, hear.
You're here. Dr. Turley, another Orthodox.
No, that's right. As long as Orthodox are first, that's all.
Oh, yeah. Well,
You should have said Orthodox Catholic.
married to an Orthodox.
That's right.
Doing my part to mend the schism.
Look,
One
you
day.
should own firearms, and you should go out and train with them. It's not enough that they just sit in the safe or are tucked away in your sock drawer. You need to go out and shoot with it. You need to carry it with you. It's you have to have proficiency, and it's a disposable skill. Like, it will degrade, so you have to get out and train regularly.
Yeah, and look, when you're in one of these schools, or if you have kids that go to one of these schools, like I do, by the way, my kids go to Catholic school. And as I was reporting the story today, in the back of my head, I'm thinking my son is in a Catholic school right now.
Right.
And it's just something we all have to think about. We have to think about on a regular basis. And guess what? We live in a real world, and that's how it goes. Fortunately, I am, as Phil mentions, someone who also regularly practices my perishable skill, and I am a firm defender and exerciser of the Second Amendment and my rights.
So it's a perishable skill you have to keep.
Yep.
Practicing.
Well,
It's like language. It's like a language ability. If
so
you
it's
don't,
not like riding a bike.
No, it's not.
the basics are you're gonna be able to do.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like
I mean,
once you know how to shoot, once you know how to shoot, you're good. But if you want to be proficient, then it's something that you have to do. Like there's this drill called a bill drill, which is you shoot 6 rounds into the target. I'm doing it from concealment, so I've got my shirt on, and I draw from my holster in concealment, and I try and aim for under 2 seconds to get the gun out and 6 rounds on target. That's what I'm going for. That's actually
under like 6 rounds on target in 2 seconds.
Get the gun out, and
but
fire.
but starting from when he says starting concealed, so it's I don't know where your holster is, but somewhere
Appendix.
it's a concealed
Starting,
holster. So the idea being, what he's talking about, this is someone's coming up and mugging you. So
like good guy with a gun training.
Iris Tao told you that story yesterday at the cabinet meeting, and she's told me that story before from NTD, where she was mugged and pistol whipped on the street in DC a couple of years ago. This is a situation where, hey, if someone's putting a gun in your face, you got to get yours out real fast, because that someone else's gun might already be out.
I tagged you on X in a video of one, so you could see.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
But yeah, I would say if you want to be effective with your firearm, that part is perishable. Absolutely. And especially with pistols. Pistols are much harder than people realize.
Yeah.
Way, way harder.
So
It's not like a Nerf gun.
I mean,
I mean,
they're fun, but they're not the same.
a firearm is a
Water gun.
the way I've
We have
always-
like
jelly in it.
1,000 of those
the
in
way
my
I've always
house.
explained it is that for people who don't, there's this mystique around firearms, which I think that basic training and familiarization training, and it sounds like you need to take Libby out to the range, man. We need a Libby range day.
Oh, I did ask a while back, remember?
And
We
got to
can
do
go.
this. We got to do this.
Look, I mean, it's open Monday through Sunday. I go to Peacemaker. It's it's in West Virginia.
The last time I shot a gun, I was 8 years old. My
All right, well,
grandfather was
this needs
shooting
to
me.
happen.
Really?
This needs to be,
Teaching me how. Yeah.
This needs to be fixed.
I remember.
What are you doing this
He
weekend?
shot some.
Ah.
Oh, would you want it? Can my kid come too? Because he would
course.
love to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Cool.
Maybe like after church Sunday.
Okay.
Perfect time to
Okay.
go.
Perfect.
Time to go. Look, and so I think it distills the mystique when you get a little more familiarization, and it's not the the scary thing that can kill. Look, it is a tool. It is the same as any other tool. It is a tool that pushes a piece of metal forward. A firearm is a tool that pushes a piece of metal forward. That's it. That's all it does. That's all every firearm does. There are different types, but if you just think of it that way, that's what they are, and that's what they do. And it is dangerous, right? The same way that any power tool would be dangerous, etc. So you have to treat it with a certain amount of respect. But at the same time, if you're not using it, if you want to use it effectively, you got to train. You got to practice on it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Pushes a piece of metal forward. You like that, Phil?
It's accurate.
all it does. That's all
Push
it
the
does.
firing pin forward, which pushes into the the primer.
Yeah.
It's accurate.
Piece of metal goes forward. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So, but once you think of it that way, you start to understand it, and then you have your rules, right? Your basic rules.
I
that
remember
everyone needs to try.
firearm rules because we had prop firearms when I was doing shows. And the rule was you had to treat them like they were real firearms.
Treat every gun like it's loaded.
Yeah.
Treat every gun like it's loaded. That's
Exactly.
number one.
So that's what we
Treat
did.
every gun like it's loaded.
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin probably should have figured that one.
I should have figured that out.
Real.
That would have saved him a lot of
What a
trouble.
clown. How do you do that?
Because you don't care.
He literally broke every firearms rule.
Every single one? Yeah.
And got away with it.
Yeah.
Someone I like this one, and I wish it were truer, but this is from ROT Corp. I've been watching these two since 2018. Captain Tim Pool and Turley Nader team up. It's like watching the final battle in Endgame. Tim Pooligans, troublemakers, assemble! And it's like we're so close, but Tim, of course, is not actually here.
Well, I'll just have to come out again.
Yeah, I'll have to come back out again. You have to come back out again.
ROT Corp is a great guy. He's always,
so he's okay. You know.
Yeah. He comments a lot on our channel. And he's a member of our Insiders Club. So.
nice.
Where was that other one? Someone said, he had another one. He actually said, RT Corp. He said, I hope Dr. Turley gets a beanie and an uncancelable Boonies board. Turley Talks Nation will know why. Cough, cough, YouTube cough.
Well, somebody can explain it to me, baby. I'm getting some hieroglyphics and all that.
Okay, David Ochoa. Check out California Assembly Bill 495. This is nightmare material. The Family Preparedness Plan would expand the type of person who is authorized to execute a caregiver's authorization affidavit. So I'm guessing that might have to do with DNRs, like do not resuscitate, something like that.
I don't know. I remember one of the parents that I talked to in California was telling me that there was a bill coming around that would allow anybody to like authorize basically gender care for your kid, even if you didn't approve it. I don't know if it's that, but that was a thing.
Firearms are important.
Yeah. Yeah. There's things that you can't do to somebody else's kid.
Yeah, yeah. The idea that you
shouldn't do them to your kid either.
Well, here's someone who disagrees, and I love reading disagreeers. From Hal Gailey, God isn't required for morality. Morality can be reached logically and axiomatically.
No, it can't.
But
You're
God
wrong.
does make morality concrete in the face of bad argumentation.
That's if there is no God, then morality is just subjective.
Yes.
You know, the back in the day, I think it was the Aztecs that sacrificed 20,000 people in 1 year to the sun god. That was good to them.
That was moral.
That was moral and good. In the Middle East, there are countries where it's moral and good to throw gay people off of buildings. Okay, this is just a true
In
thing.
Afghanistan, it's moral and good to not let women's voices be heard in public.
Mm-hmm.
Or to let
Well, there's
them be
some things
seen
we would agree.
inside
No,
the-
no.
Libby will. Libby will.
I'm an older brother.
I've stepped on that with Libby before. And she'll
I don't
come at
get
you.
mad. I just am right.
Yeah, that's right. I don't get mad. I
The
guess.
women driving thing.
This would be my response to that would be that I hear what you're saying, and I am sympathetic to your point. However, it does not scale. It does. So godlessness does not work at scale. And in
That's a very good
a
point.
society where you have people that are constantly searching for meaning, and this is what Nietzsche talked about with nihilism, that when you kill God, people will try to fill that void with anything, and it will lead to the destruction of society. That is what we are currently living through, which Nietzsche, of course, predicted 150 years ago. And so it doesn't. Yeah, maybe for some people, but it doesn't scale. Absolutely not.
The 20th century was the most bloody and horrific century in human history for a reason.
Nietzsche predicted it.
Yeah, and he saw what was coming when he proclaimed the death of God. It was not some kind of victory, he figured. He said this is going to be a bloodbath until man remakes himself. Now, I don't think that he's right about that, because I don't think man can remake himself in the way that Nietzsche thought. But still, like, it was an absolute bloodbath. The 20th century was a complete shit show.
We have a almost like a double super chat here from Maximilian Cunnings. Paid quite a lot of money to say this. So, hi, Dr. Steve. You don't have time to answer my question, so I'll see you Friday. Okay. Also, could you pray for my internet friend, as she is extremely suicidal?
Oh my.
So that's Maximilian Cunnings. So you'll be seeing Max on
I will.
Friday.
I will.
prayers
Maximilian,
for your
absolutely.
friend. My
Yes,
goodness.
absolutely.
That was a big one. This one comes in from, I'm not your buddy, guy. The left is radicalized, and I've been warning others. Many of these people are genuinely okay with mass human removal. This isn't fear-mongering. They are utopian and willing to break a few eggs to make that omelet. The book Unhumans is all about this. This is specifically what I wrote. They view us as less than human. They view anyone who is in their way, specifically Christians, believers, and even the children of Christians, as a sort of, shall we say, invasive species. They think that if we are removed, we are the fly in their ointment. We are the ones that need to be removed from the equation so that their final beautiful equal justice, equal equity, social justice society can flourish. So remember, communism is always only just a couple of mass killings away from finally working.
There you go.
So well said.
Do we have any Rumble rants?
Oh yeah, there's some over here.
Yeah, I saw a couple. This one, Rocket Theology. Wow. Catholic schools in Northern Virginia have already been doing attack drills and are at max paranoia. Many kids' school year will be affected as a result of this attack. And unfortunately, it's not paranoia.
Yeah,
Because
it's not really.
it's
is it?
very real. It's very. And we have another one. I've heard of this actually. So Jumped Up Pleb, my friend's company, Prelio Security, was created specifically to place armed former military guards at Christian schools. Very effective. So Prelio Security, and there's a number of these that are
Awesome.
that are popping up now
It's great.
because people are realizing it's just real.
It's a necessity.
It's needed. Carlo Magno wrote, Jack, I just Googled list of trans violence mass shooting and nothing pops up. Are you sure this isn't fake news? Question mark. And I think it's, he's being sarcastic there. So, Libby, maybe the post-millennial could put together a compendium.
Should we
of
do a little
sorts.
list?
Maybe
It's not a
a
bad idea.
listicle of the
Listicles are so fun, you guys. Everybody loves them.
the top, well, not top, but the most recent.
Top 10 trans shooting.
I mean, it is important because if you're getting your news from traditional sites, you're not going to see. It's not easily accessed. At the very least, it's not that you can't find it. It's that they're going to make it as difficult to find this information as possible. And the less you see of it, the quicker it leaves your mind. And that's why people will be under the wrong assumption that the violence only goes one way. And the media's best tool to lie to you is obfuscation. It's why they put the most important information in the last paragraph in every article, and why everything gets buried in 2 days, because they don't necessarily even have to lie to you outright. They just need to get it away from your eyes as quickly as possible if they want to push you towards a certain viewpoint.
So true. Yeah, the way you have to read, New York Times or Washington Post is read the bottom
paragraph
first and then go back.
Yeah.
We are starting to run low on time. Dr. Turley, you've got a book here that you brought with us. What is this?
What?
What are these books?
Yes, I do. America Awakened, The Collapse of Globalism, and The Return to Faith, Family, and Freedom. A lovely little picture in the back, too, as well, a portrait.
Who's that guy?
Who is
Who
is
is
it? Yeah,
that?
That was a few pounds ago, too. But I wrote it really to answer the question. I was asked oftentimes, Trump is always bringing up the golden age, the golden age. What is this golden age he's talking about? And so I sat down and I wrote an entire book on what exactly this golden age is. And I basically make the argument it's the era of restorationist politics. It's what scholars call it. It's actually happening all over the world. But here in the United States, it's happening in the form of MAGA. And what we're seeing the collapse of globalism that is ushering in at the same time one of the greatest religious renewals we've ever seen. That's a direct quote from Rodney Stark, the late sociologist at Baylor University. That religious renewal is more or less resolving the reproduction crisis, demographic crisis that we're facing because, like we talked about earlier, conservative Christians here in the United States, conservative religious in general, are having more children than ever, while secular liberals have largely stopped having kids. And then thirdly, we're also seeing the rise of what's called the network society. Jack and I have actually talked about that in a conference together. where the rise of the internet and cyberspace are increasingly liberating more and more populations from the old liberal structures, very similar to the way email and texting bypass the old post office. So the legacy media is still there. It's just that people don't really use it that much anymore because we don't have to. We have a new era, a new world that's rising. So this resurgence of faith, this resurgence of family, and this resurgence of freedom is combining together to create this golden age like never before. So America awakens, the collapse of globalism and the return to faith, family, and freedom.
And Dr. Turley, tell people where they can go to follow you and get more access to your rants and ravings.
My rants and ravings, you can go to turleytalks.com. You can go to Amazon to grab this, and you can go, generally it's either Rumble or YouTube. Just put in Dr. Steve Turley and you'll find me there.
Dr. Turley, I can't believe you haven't been on before. That's
it's great. It's
blowing my
awesome.
mind.
It's awesome to be with you guys.
Actually,
It's
because
an honor.
you're all over my YouTube feed whenever I pop in. So I'm saying, how could you have not been on? That's crazy. Libby.
I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons. You can also find me and everybody else at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com to see all the great work we're doing. And you can sign up for my newsletter at thepostmillennial.com/Libby. Thanks.
Thank you, Brett.
Guys, if you want to follow me, I am on Instagram and on X at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. But what you should do is go find Pop Culture Crisis. We are on YouTube and on Rumble 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you there, guys.
I would also say that Brett's got a great pinned tweet on TV recommendations.
125 of them.
125, and it's like it's wild. It's wild
Wait,
reading
what?
it because I've seen it before. I didn't tell you this before, but I was like, man, this guy has like the exact same taste in TV shows and movies. We were going back and forth for like an hour before this about Bosch and Michael Conley stuff. So
We know we had to sit through
I know.
We forced them to sit here and listen to all of it.
We'll have to have a side chat about that some time.
Very
on
few
PCC.
people have the depth of knowledge that Brett does. I am Phil That Remains on Twix. The band is All That Remains. You can check us out on YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, and Deezer. Don't forget, The Left Lane is for crime.
So good. Serge, thank you for pressing buttons once again, man. Thank you. All right, I am Jack Posobiec. This will be my, as far as I know, last time guest hosting this stint around. We're all praying for Steve. Gosh, I want to say Bannon for a second because I could always guest host for him when he's in jail or something. I don't think he's in jail again yet, but we'll see.
That's right.
We'll see. The Chinese Communist Party is always trying to get him, but. No, I was actually looking at Psycho Stew. That's what I was thinking of it. And no, Tim, we're praying for Tim. We hope that he gets better. And I think he's on the mend. So I chatted with him a little bit earlier today, and he was definitely on the board. If you want to check out any more of my stuff, it's Human Events Daily, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're doing a ton. We were up in the Anchorage Accords with Vladimir Putin, with Sergei Lavrov. We then went to the multilateral meeting with Zelensky and all the European leaders. So we're giving you that real-time, direct access to everything that's going on. So check out Human Events Daily and, of course, humanevents.com. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.